So today I'm going to continue our study on Book of Daniel. It's actually a broader series that I'm doing with Moedim, Appointed Time. Um, let's mute ourselves. I'm going to mute you guys, and we'll open it up for questions later. Um, and before we go any further, I want to ask our online YouTube viewers to subscribe to this channel for any new postings that we're going to do so you don't miss any. And also write a little comment to us. Give us a little feedback about what you thought and what you're learning, any questions you may have, just like what we do after we finish the presentation. We have a little discussion time, which I don't really post on YouTube, but we can have that also online through our comment section. So anyways, so last time we went over, we had a general overview of Book of Daniel and also chapter 2. We went over chapter 2. Today we're going to go over chapter 7 and chapter 8, which is kind of a continuation of the vision of Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 2. But before we go, I always like to start with this because my thing, my scripture teaching is becoming about this verse, which says, Jesus said this to his disciples before ascending into heaven. He said, these are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. Then open their understanding that they might understand the scriptures. So he was emphasizing before, I mean, his last words to them before he went up to heaven was like, okay, I wrote all this before in the Old Testament, you know, in the Pentateuch, in the Torah, and that was all about me. So when you read the Old Testament, everything is about Jesus. I mean, like that's what he said, you know. That's what he said. So when you read the Old Testament, you will read about him on almost every single page. You will see him on every single page. The name of God itself is him. And so anyways, so I'm gonna uncover some of that today. So this was an overview we had last session, but let me just go over it, not in detail, but in general overview so that you guys kind of have a direction as to where we're headed, what's coming. So Book of Daniel is designed in a very interesting fashion. So it has 12 chapters. The chapter 1 through 6 is about story about how actually chapter 1 through 6 about story of Daniel and his friends, right? And chapter 7 through 12 is about Daniel's visions or dream, and as it pertains to end times. And chapter 1 through 6 is about how Daniel and his friends did not compromise their faith, you know, kept their Jewish tradition, Hebrew tradition, and how God honored them and elevated them and rewarded them eventually. And as a result, he became like a counsel, like one of the right-hand men to Nebuchadnezzar and his son. And so then Nebuchadnezzar has a dream in chapter 2, which really is about the history of the world, what's going to happen with the different kingdoms that's supposed to come after him, even to the end times. And that vision of this statue is the overview of all the other visions, and even the symbolism that we find in Book of Revelation. It is all included in Nebuchadnezzar's dream in chapter 2. And then you have chapter 3 of the story of his 3 friends that ended up in the fiery furnace, and Jesus appears in the midst of the furnace to save them. Incidents we call Christophany. And then chapter 4 and 5 is the dream, the tale of the 2 kings' dreams, Nebuchadnezzar and his son, when he took over Belshazzar's dream, and the interpretation that Daniel had and all that. And So the message there is, if you don't humble yourself, you're going to be ruined. But if you do and you repent, you'll be saved. And then chapter 6 is about the lions, the infamous lion's den story of how Daniel was put in the lion's den and saved by God because he did not compromise and he refused to worship Nebuchadnezzar's, statue and all that. And then we run into today's chapter 7 through 12, but we're going to focus on chapter 7 and 8 today. And then we're going to finish up with chapter 9 through 12 next time. And then I will put it all together in a timeline, which I love to do, as you guys know. So I will put it all together in a timeline at the next session. Hopefully I can do it in one session next time. But it's incredible. What's in Book of Daniel is incredible in terms of the prediction of how things are supposed to be in terms of time, like to the day. It's incredible. Jesus's death is predicted to the day, according to Book of Daniel. Really incredible. But anyways, so let's read chapter 7. I skipped some few verses here and there, but I included most of the verses here that's relevant to our discussion. Verse 3, it starts out saying, and 4 great beasts. So Daniel is dreaming this, okay? And he dreams these 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another, diverse one from another. Verse 4, the first was like a lion, which correlates with the head, the Babylonian, the gold head that Nebuchadnezzar dreamt in chapter 2. So this lion represents that portion of that dream, or Babylon, and had eagle's wings. And I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and may stand upon the feet as a man, and man's heart was given to it. So this is what happened to Babylon, actually. It really correlates well with what happened to Babylon. What happened was the wings, the eagle's wings, represent the swiftness as to their conquering of their neighboring nations. And so they were very swift in conquering their neighbors, but the wings were plucked, meaning they were kind of on the decline. So at the time Daniel dreamt this, their empire was on the decline already. So their wings were kind of being plucked, and instead of being cruel, they became a little bit more humane. And so this is exactly what happened. And as we go over these dreams and all these animals and beasts, I want you to keep one thing in mind, is that these animals represent the kingdoms of the past, and also it has a double meaning, or even multiple meanings. It also represents kingdoms to come. So anytime you read prophecy in the Bible, that's what happens a lot. It's relevant for that time, and is relevant for their immediate future, and also for distant future. So this lion, although it represents Babylon, could represent another nation in the future. We'll go over that in a little bit. So anyways, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, which is the silver portion of the chest portion of the Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the Medo-Persia portion. And it raised up itself on one side, which represents Persia, because Persia dominated Medians. And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. So this is a very interesting thing, like it had 3 ribs. And what does this represent? And this represented the Medo-Persian Empire devouring. First, it destroyed Babylon. It kind of destroyed Babylon and took over. And it also destroyed Lydia and Egypt. Okay, so they destroyed Babylonians, Lydians, and Egyptians. And so it represents that. It just 3 ribs. It just tore the flesh off through his like the viciousness of this animal of bear. That's what the bear represents here. Again, this also represents some other nation in the future. Um, and so in verse 6, it says, after this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which represents Macedonia or Greece, or the bronze and of the Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. So instead of eagle's wings, it's got 4 wings, and the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So the 4 wings also represents the swiftness also, like the Babylonians. They were very, very quick to conquer their neighbors, led by Alexander the Great. And he eventually had his 4 chiefs that kind of divide the kingdoms after Alexander died. So this matches exactly what happened in history of human history. But again, this represents another country. A little bit later, I'll share with you. And then there's a 4th beast. And after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, the 4th beast, which represents the Roman Empire. This beast was so vicious, dreadful, and terrible, and strong exceedingly, that Daniel did not even, God didn't even give him like an animal to represent this, because this beast was so bad. It had great iron teeth. It even had iron teeth, like it could tore off anything. It devoured and break in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. So it would devour and break everything in its path, and even stamp on what's left of it with its feet. It was diverse, different from all the beasts that were before it. So it was none like the other 3 empires that came before it. And it had 10 horns, which is very, very consistent with the book of Revelations and other imageries of the, even correlates with Nebuchadnezzar's dream too, with the 10 toes, so which represents the 10 kings, or the 10 kingdoms or countries. And each one of these represents one world unified country. And this is what we're headed to in these days with the new world order that they're talking about. One world, one unified world government. And so let's go on here. Verse 8 says, I considered the horns, the 10 horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. When I read this, I kind of chuckled. I kind of laughed at this, because God is like, this is talking about the Antichrist. And he's like, you're just a little horn. It's like, you're nobody to me, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So the 3 kings before him were replaced, or they were made nothing, by the Antichrist. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Like, this great things is not just like great things. It's talking about blasphemy. It's talking about like insult towards God and his people. And this, I find this to be very interesting, that it talks about the eyes of man. Like this is in reference to the resurrected, revived Roman Empire at the end times, or it could be the EU, it could be the United Nations. We don't know, but it sure looks like it. And out of that arises Antichrist. And it's interesting, the eyes of man is mentioned here. Like, if we think about it, the eyes, what is the symbol of the eye? The all-seeing eye that the Illuminati has. So, and we see this in Roman Catholicism as well. And so, so this all points to my previous teaching, confirms our previous teachings on Book of Revelation. And I encourage you to look at those videos to kind of tie all this in together. I try to do it today as well. So here's a summary of Daniel chapter 7 here. The four beasts. One was like a lion with eagle's wings, which was plucked And then this lion was lifted up from the earth, and was given man's heart. And the bear, second beast, raised up on its one side, symbolizing Persia over Median, and then three ribs, the three kingdoms that it destroyed in the process. And then third the third beast, the leopard, with four wings, again, very swift, very powerful, with four heads, representing the four chiefs that was divided in the Grecian Empire. Alexander the Great died, his four chiefs taking over and given dominion. And the fourth terrible beast, with the iron teeth, with 10 horns, brass nails, a little horn, the Antichrist rises up out of it, and replacing the three kings or the three rulers, consistent with Book of Revelation. So there's a little interpretation. God gives us actually interpretations of these in Book of Daniel, and so he lets us know what we need to know in the Bible. So this is what he tells us. These great beasts, which are the four beasts, are four kings. So it confirms what I've been telling you, that these are kings, four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom. So Christians, believers of Christ, believers of God, of Jehovah, we're supposed to take over. So these kingdoms will be made nothing. We'll take over the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever, like for eternity. It's talking about the future, eternity. Actually, beginning with the Armageddon, that's when the millennial kingdom commences, and we are reigning with Christ, with him. In verse 19, it says, "Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful. This is the Roman Empire and the resurrected Roman Empire of today, whose teeth were of iron and its nails of brass, which devour, breaking pieces, and stamp the residue with his feet." There it is again. It like kills everything in its path. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, the 10 nations that are included, the 10 toes of in chapter 2 of Book of Daniel, that's what's referring to. They were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes. There it is again, the reference to the eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Stout meaning like greater, greater power. So the three horns were destroyed, and out of it came the Antichrist. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints. Not surprising, the Antichrist is making war with the Christians and prevailed against them. So the Antichrist actually is going to make persecute the Christians and the tribulation saints, and prevailed against them until Armageddon, when the Messiah comes for the second time to establish his millennial kingdom. It says, until the Ancient of Days come. There it is. Okay, until the Ancient of Days. So Ancient of Days is in reference to Jesus, but it could also be God the Father from my reading of this text. But most of the time, we interpret that as Jesus or the Messiah. And judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. Again, the saints, Christians, are supposed to actually participate in the end time judgment, and which means we are raptured before that. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. 23rd verse, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth. Okay, the fourth beast is the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, none like the ones before, is unique, is different, and shall devour the whole earth. and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. Gonna destroy the earth, destroy all the other countries, and this is what's going on. We're destroying sovereignty of nations currently in our times by heading towards this one world government. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, the Antichrist, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So exactly what we've been talking about. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. In other words, blasphemy and just insults at God, and shall wear out the saints, meaning killing the believers of the Most High, and think, this is very important word, think. He thinks. The Antichrist thinks he can change the times and the laws, okay? What this is in reference to, the times in the original Hebrew means appointed time, the Moedim that we were talking about. The Moedim, the appointed time, is set by God, by nobody else. But Satan is trying to change God's appointed time. Isn't that so typical of Satan? He's trying to be like God. And then not only the times, not only the appointed times of when he's supposed to come back and all this, he is also trying to change the laws of God. This is why we have all these anti-biblical laws occurring, popping up everywhere, you know, and killing of babies and all kinds of crazy things going on. So Satan thinks it can do that. It thinks it can do it, and people think that he's doing it too. But remember who's in charge. God is the one in charge. He's only merely thinking he's doing it, okay? Because God is behind everything. He's in full control. Don't ever think that he lost control of our world. He is in full control. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that kind of weird? Most biblical scholars agree that this is in reference to the 3.5 years in the latter part of the Great Tribulation, a time representing 1 year, times representing 2 years, and then dividing of time meaning half a year, which is consistent with 1200, I think 1260 days that's talked about in Book of Revelation. But the judgment shall sit, meaning the great white throne judgment, I think, or even the sheep and the goat judgment. And they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. Verse 27, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. So we know the ending. We know the ending. The ending's going to be great. It's just that until we get there, we're going to have to go through some birthing pains here, okay? So let's, okay, oh, here it is. The verse 28 says, hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. So it kind of troubled him to, I mean, can you imagine God revealing the end, the entire human history and the end? And of course, you're going to be troubled by this whole thing, but he kept it in his heart. And it says here, the reason why we know this is about the end time is because the scripture says so in verse 28. It said, this is the end of the matter. This is in reference to the end of earth. So, so this is a kind of a pictorial representation of what we've been talking about. Here's chapter 2, the Nebuchadnezzar's statue, the golden head, the silver, the bronze, the thighs, and the iron, the clay toes, the 10 nations, or the 10 horns that Daniel 7 and 8 is talking about. So Daniel 7, the lion with the eagle's wings, is talking about the Babylon represented here on the golden head. of this Daniel 2 statue. Medo-Persia, we talked about all this. Greece here, the leopard, Grecian Empire led by Alexander the Great with the 4 heads, the four divided kingdoms after that. And then Roman Empire, the terrible beast coming out with the revived Roman Empire at the end times with the 10 horns. This is also in Book of Revelations in different format, different imagery. Book of Revelation 12 talks about the dragon. Book of Revelation chapter 13 talks about the leopard with the bare feet and the I believe it's seven-headed beast with the 10 horns. And the Book of Revelation chapter 17, the great harlot, mystery Babylon, riding on the red dragon, Satan with the 7 heads again with the 10 horns. So it's all correlates together. Again, I taught on this topic in Book of Revelation video series. So if you would like more details on it, you could look that up. So I kind of actually go over it here. So Book of Revelation 17, the great red dragon, it just shows you the kingdoms of the past and kingdoms that is to come. But over here is more of a kingdoms of the past. Okay, so so it has 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns. Okay, and the kingdoms are represented here. These are all one world unified kingdoms of the past, kind of like the one world order, one world government that's coming. So Babylon was led by Nimrod, was the first one, and then came Pharaoh with Egypt, Sennacherib with Assyria, and then Nebuchadnezzar, the revived Babylonian Empire, and then Media-Persia with Darius and Cyrus, and Greece led by Alexander the Great, and Caesar Augustus with Rome, and then these 8, 9, 10 gets revived at the end times. These 3 kings, these rulers at the end times. And then the first beast, the Antichrist, mentioned in Book of Revelation 13. I find it very interesting. The number 13 represents the Antichrist here in Book of Revelation. You have the same thing, 7 heads, a similar thing, I should say, 10 horns and 10 crowns representing the kings. And here is exactly the same thing, the Babylon, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, all the way to Rome. We just mentioned that. But then we have this revival of these ancient empires, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. And in Book of Daniel, we just went over chapter 7, the lion represents Media, Persia, and a bear represents Greece, and leopard represents Rome. Who are these countries at the end times? So when you think about this, in the modern times, we talk about the ancient times here, but in the modern times, this has happened too. If you think about it, lion is represented with England. So England was everywhere, right? England had like they were imperialistic country. They conquered everywhere. They have like all these what do you call those subjugate, I forget the term that I'm looking for, the subjugate countries like Australia and all these other islands, and they conquered all these other countries. And so they were an empire, British Empire. We even call them empire, British Empire. And then came, after that, I believe bear, we know that Russia is represented with bear, right? And we know this in history too, because before Russia was Russia, in today's times, it was Soviet Union, right? They were dominating the entire Eastern Bloc, and it was one of the superpowers. And interestingly, Greek Orthodox Church is located in Russia, and so it goes along with the fact that the bear represents Greece as well. And then after that, after the fall of Soviet Union, the only superpower that's really left is USA, and is represented by the leopard. Why is it leopard? Why is it? What are the colors of leopard? You can see all the spots; those are black, and then the coat is yellow, right? Yellow, black. Where is the white at? The white is at the under surface or the belly of the leopard. So leopard has three colors: yellow, black, and white. Black and white, Caucasians, African Americans, and Asians. I mean, this is okay. We're excluding all the other, but those are the main racial groups that are in our land, right, currently, right? And so it kind of fits that at the end time, modern history, these empires were in succession. British Empire, followed by Soviet Union, fall of Soviet Union, followed by the only superpower left, USA. And now China is coming up, which is also mentioned in Book of Revelation. Um, but then, I mentioned here the all these G7 and G10 countries, which could be part of those 10 nations that we've been talking about, the 10 horns. Here's an interesting little graphic or symbolism, coat of armor that I found about England. If you look at this, it's really interesting. Let's look at the oldest coat of armor, King Richard I, was in 1189 to 1198. It has a lion on it. It has a lion on it. It's standing up too. It's kind of thin, lion. And then a little bit after that, King Richard, the lion heart emblem has three lions. And then a little bit after that, Queen Mary's got multiple lions. Some of them are standing up here. And then King William and King James VI has the lion standing up again. And then in modern times, Prince Philip, who just recently passed away, actually, has the lion standing up with no wings. So the eagle's wings, remember, in chapter 7, we talked about today, the eagle's wings were plucked off and the lion stood up on its feet and was given a man's heart. There's the man. So it's complete, like it completely fits that this represents British Empire, in my opinion. So Prince Charles, here's the lion. He actually has a unicorn represented. So it's a variation of lions and whatever they choose. So Sophie, Countess of Wessex, has lion and some satanic dragon here. And then London coat of arms is just two satanic dragons.